Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Dave Gonzales, the Executive Director of Friends Outside, a very important community resource that we're going to learn a lot more about. But first of all, let's get to know Dave. Dave, thanks for being on Democratic Television.
Absolutely a pleasure.
Great. Before we learn about Friends Outside and the important work that you do, let's get to know you a little bit. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What were your hobbies? Things like that.
Well, I'm a very happy native Bay Arean.
Oh.
Born in Oakland, raised for part of my childhood in San Francisco and the other part in Redwood City, educated at Stanford, career law enforcement officer in Berkeley and here in Santa Clara County.
No kidding. What were your interests in school? Going to school, did you think, I can't wait to get in law enforcement, or I can't wait to get in law enforcement, retire, and head an organization that helps prisoners?
Well, I was really interested in sports, and I was interested in student government, and I thought that I was going to be an attorney. And as it turned out, I finished up college early and needed to support myself until the fall came around and law school started. And on a lark, I applied to Berkeley Police Department. I had a childhood friend that had just started there as an officer.
Oh.
So I walked up to the personnel office one morning, turned in an application. As it turned out, the director of city personnel was covering the front desk. So he took my application and he said, "I'm sorry, the application deadline for a patrol officer has passed." Then he looked at my application. He said, "Wait a minute." And he went in the back room for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And he came back and he said, "We can take your application." I had no idea what was going on, but I was happy that he accepted it. So within a few weeks, I was sworn in as a police officer at Berkeley PD, and off I went.
Wow.
And I found out that I had a high need and a high enjoyment of excitement. And when the fall came around and law school was supposed to start, I stayed with Berkeley PD.
Got it. Well, being a police officer in Berkeley can't be like being a police officer anywhere else. It's a interesting city and a lot of different social climates going on.
Well, when I was there, it was both interesting and harrowing because of all the violence. There were a lot of shootings among the citizens. While I was there, I saw 3 officers get shot. It was a very difficult place to do police work. And you know, after about a year and a half, I decided that I wanted to change locales, and I went to work for the Sheriff's Department here in Santa Clara County.
Oh, okay. You must have seen a lot of changes over the years as a sheriff, and see the county grow, get a lot more congested, a lot more diverse, a lot of ups and downs. How do you think the county has progressed since you started?
Well, I think that the orchards have gone away. There were still orchards when I started with the Sheriff's Department in 1974. They are certainly gone. And the wealth in the county has just grown dramatically. I will say this, that I think there have been some very good urban planning decisions made. As this county has developed, we really haven't had the kinds of ghettos, extremely high crime areas that other parts of the San Francisco Bay Area have. So I think the quality of life in Santa Clara Valley is really excellent. San Jose has been a city that's had the lowest crime rate of any big city in the nation.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we're very fortunate.
Good observations. Now, you went to Stanford. What was your major? What was your goal? It was always to be a lawyer, and until that fateful application turning in.
Yeah, it was to go to law school, and you know, I majored in sociology, a social science, with an emphasis in organizational design and theory. and Stanford was an exciting place. I started in '69, and the first spring there was a huge riot that closed down the university protesting the Vietnam War. But it was also a great place because undergraduate education was incredibly important to the university. So that, for instance, I was in a English class of 13 or 14 students, freshman English,
wow,
with a full professor as an instructor. The spring quarter of my freshman year, I got to participate in a research project with 2 full professors, which eventually led to a book, and gee, I even got to be in the acknowledgments at the front of the book.
All right.
That's pretty heady stuff for a little freshman who can't even find the cafeteria, you know.
And so you then take that knowledge, become a police officer in Berkeley, decide to move down to the San Jose area and get involved in law enforcement. Was that a surprise to you that you found yourself sort of taking to police work and seeing life from maybe a different point of view as a kid and all that?
Yeah, I think it was a real surprise, and it was certainly a bigger surprise to other people because, you know, I get a couple of interesting questions. You know, what is a Stanford graduate doing in law enforcement? Well, I like to say primarily a Stanford graduate is in law enforcement because I was committed to public service and I wanted to make the world a better place.
So you had those ideals from the 60s.
I had those ideals from the 60s, and I really do see the value of law enforcement. And fortunately, I had an opportunity to serve with some really excellent people, and I do believe people that enter law enforcement are very, very hopeful, idealistic people that truly want to make the world a better place. And I found it very exciting to have the privilege of working with those kinds of people. And they're also people with a high degree of courage and the ability to do a very difficult task under demanding situations. And I really respected that. And, you know, I wanted to be that kind of person. Not everybody that enters law enforcement, no matter how badly he wants to be a police officer, is equipped or able to do it. And so in the beginning, you know, when I was trying to decide, do I really have the ability to do this job, you know, I really respected the people I worked with for the courage, the skills they had, and I really wanted to be able to do that.
Now, and we're going to talk a little bit later about Friends Outside, because it sounds like the values you had as a young man are the values that you've taken into this organization that provides an important community service that people aren't aware of. But that the stereotype that I have of a police officer, whether they have those ideals or not, even if they have them, they get bleached out of them by the daily, you know, patrol work and the frustrations with the legal system and the fact that you have offenders reoffending and all that, and a sense of, I really can't make a difference.
Well, I think if you stay in law enforcement for a little while, you're going to face some frustration, but you don't stay in law enforcement if those frustrations bleach all your hope out. You have to maintain, you have to keep that faith in order to stay in the profession. So as much as you may see some officers being frustrated, they still are hopeful, and that's why they continue to do their job.
And that's probably a subject for a whole nother show. Before we delve a little bit more into Friends Outside, though, had you heard about Friends Outside yourself as a deputy sheriff?
Well, I first came across Friends Outside when I was a deputy sheriff working in the main jail downtown. And the Friends Outside volunteers came in and they interviewed inmates and they helped inmates with family issues. They distributed donated books to the inmates. And I very quickly realized, maybe not on my own, because a lot of the other deputies that were older than I am showed great respect for Friends Outside. Because it was generally known that Friends Outside and the work they do in the jails reduced the tension among the inmates and made the job easier for the deputy sheriffs working in the jail. And so from the moment that I was assigned to the jails, I realized that Friends Outside had deep respect among the jail staff.
I don't think we can speak another word about this without asking you, where did Friends Outside come from? Who thought of it? Where was it born?
Well, as the story goes, and unfortunately the history isn't well documented, but as the story goes, in 1955 there was a reform-minded sheriff, Mel Hawley. He was a successful attorney from Los Altos who was asked by community leaders to run for sheriff and clean up the sheriff's department. He was elected, and one day he was walking through the county jail in downtown San Jose, and an inmate walked up to him and asked the sheriff to contact the inmate's family. It was probably one of those typical situations where the inmate got paid on Friday, went to the bar, drank up his paycheck, got arrested for being drunk, and put in the county jail. And his family didn't know where he was. For all they knew, he was dead or had run off. And in those days, there weren't phone calls, or rather phones in the county jail for the inmates, so he had no way of getting a hold of his family. So the sheriff recruited his sister to go contact the family. She, in turn, talked to a friend, Rosemary Goodenough, our founder, and the two of them visited the family. And again, this is not well documented, but I suspected they found what was a very typical situation of an inmate's family in the 50s. The dad was probably the sole wage earner in the family. He'd probably drank up the paycheck. Mom was left home with children, no way of paying the rent, no money for food. So these volunteers created an organization called the San Jose Jail Auxiliary to provide emergency food to inmates' families, to provide clothing for typically the mother so that she could interview for a job, help move families when they were evicted and find new housing, and really became an emergency assistance program. And Rosemary Goodenough was really dedicated to a couple of simple propositions. One is that inmates remain members of our society, particularly in the county jail.
Right.
They are going to return to our community, and it is best that the family unit stay together, so that inmate and that family need support with a particular goal of keeping the family together and helping the family get through the impacts, the trauma
that incarceration brings.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, lots more to talk about.
All right.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, the representative from the 16th Congressional District here in California. Lots of times young people ask me, how did you first become involved in government and in politics? And I tell them the truth, that I remember walking door to door with my mother in the 50s collecting dollars for Democrats. I have such fond memories of being involved in the Democratic Party as a young person, stuffing envelopes for elections, seeing President John F. Kennedy address the country and propose the Peace Corps. What a lot of people don't realize is the value, the wonderful feelings of participation, of making the country a better place that one can get from participating in elections and in the electoral process. If you'd like to have this wonderful experience, I would encourage you to call the Democratic Party here in our county. It's 408-445-9500. Make this country a better place and enrich your own life by being part of the democratic process.
Welcome back to Democratic Television and our guest, Dave, who's been talking to us about Friends Outside. Dave, let's keep talking.
All right.
So the organization was started in the mid-50s with some folks that realized there really were serious problems that inmates needed help with just as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And Friends Outside has always been dedicated to the idea that inmates are human beings They have dignity that needs to be respected, that eventually they will return to the community, and if the community supports them, they're more likely to return as productive citizens.
How does Friends do business? What kind of programs do you run? And they're not exclusively for inmates, but inmates' families and all that?
Much of the work we do today is with the inmates' families, especially the children. And our work is really intensive interventions with a smaller group of clients that make lasting changes in their lives.
Do you find that there are issues that, had they been in place, or programs that your organization wouldn't be as busy as you are? What helps populate the prisons that you see?
Well, we did a study in Santa Clara County in the early 90s as part of a national federal study. And we did drug testing on the people that were booked into the county jail. And we found that over 90% of the men and women booked into the Santa Clara County Jail were under the influence of drugs and or alcohol at the time of intake.
That is pretty stunning.
Now, I don't know how many of them were addicted to drugs and alcohol, but I would say a huge portion of them are. And I think it's safe to say that drugs and alcohol are the primary driving force that fills our county jails. And what many of these inmates need is residential drug and alcohol treatment. Now, not all of them will make a decision on any given visit to the county jail to confront the fact that they are addicted. But for those who do, they really need treatment. And I think that is the answer to ending the cycle of crime that they're often involved in.
You said that you did a study and that was the finding. Was there an intuitive feeling before the study that the substance abuse was a big problem?
Well, certainly we saw a lot of obvious drunks come into the county jail. I'm not sure we were prepared for the proposition that such a large number of the bookies were under the influence of drugs, because being under the influence of drugs is sometimes so subtle that jail personnel don't realize they are in fact under the influence. But once we did the testing, then we realized the magnitude of the problem.
So when you get out and speak about Friends Outside, and I'm sure do your fundraising pitches and all that, you must refer to that as a major cause of people being imprisoned, or people taking risky behavior to try to enhance their lives or whatever. I mean, if that's the right way to put it.
Yes, that really frames the problem. And the other thing that I like to talk about, and this is something that people don't often think about, we book 80,000 people into our county jail every year.
80,000?
80,000. This cuts across every socioeconomic, gender, geographic group in the county, so that it is our neighbors, our friends, our relatives that go into the county jail. The vast majority of these people will return to our community in a relatively short period of time, on average probably 2 months. So the key is, when these people, our community members, return, are they more likely to be a productive citizen or not? And for me personally, that's one of the biggest concerns that I have, and certainly Friends Outside is concerned with that. But Friends Outside, moreover, is concerned that the family left outside is restored to health from the trauma of the family members' incarceration, that the economic impacts are lessened, that the children really have an opportunity to recover from the incarceration and do well, because there are, obviously lasting impacts on children, and much of the work that Friends Outside does is really with the children.
What kind of volunteers come forward to help you? Because I'm sure you can't have a staff that does everything and have you feel like that's all we need. I mean, I assume you have a request ongoing for volunteers to work with kids and families and all that to assist your staff.
We have a large number of volunteers that for many years have carried books into the county jail. That was one of the first services that Friends Outside started in 1955, is bringing reading materials to the inmates so that they weren't bored, so they didn't cause trouble in the county jail, so that they didn't get caught up in their own despair. And we continue to bring thousands and thousands of books to county jail inmates every year, and that is a volunteer operation. We also use a large number of volunteers in our after-school and summer youth programs. Many of them are college students that help lead recreational and educational exercises at the after-school program. And we have a number of volunteers that come in and give us administrative support. And that's doing clerical work, that's doing fundraising, really more hands to help us out.
And tell me a little bit about your staff. What kind of staff people do you have? What are the programs they run?
Well, as one might imagine, most of our staff are social workers, and thankfully they are social workers that are willing to work with a client group that few organizations in our community serve. We, in fact, are the only organization that is dedicated exclusively to serving inmates and their families. So our staff have made a very profound decision as far as what work they're going to do, because there are few, if any, other organizations that serve the same client group. And they're social workers, and they work with youth. They do home visiting to help parents learn about the developmental needs of their family and help make their children school ready. And we have several social workers that go into the jails, and that's particularly difficult work.
Friends Outside sounds like an important organization to the community. Do you exist outside of Santa Clara County?
Friends Outside was founded in 1955. Sometime in the late 60s, the founder, Rosemary Goodenough, thought this was a good enough idea that we really ought to share this with other communities. And she helped launch a national office, which is in Stockton, which would take the Friends Outside name and create chapters in other counties. And today there are 8 other chapters in California counties, as well as a national office that works with the state prison system.
How is Friends Outside funded?
We, like most organizations, have a wide range of funding. We are funded by the County of Santa Clara, the City of San Jose, first 5 of Santa Clara County. We have funding from private foundations. We have a large number of individual contributors, and we have several corporate sponsors. And one of the sponsors I'm particularly proud of is the Deputy Sheriff's Association of Santa Clara County.
Well, that's great.
And that goes back to the days, when deputy sheriffs worked in the jail. They don't anymore. And Friends Outside reduced the tension in the institution and made the work life of the deputies better. And they continue to be thankful for that, and I think they also appreciate the fact that we're trying to reduce the jail population. by integrating inmates back into the community successfully, and they like the work we do with children, and so they give us financial support.
Very interesting.
That sounds like a plug for the Deputy Sheriff's Association. It is, because I used to be a member,
well,
and I'm proud of it.
And the other point is, it sounds like the ideals that you started out with as a young man are being carried forth in terms of your commitment to social justice and the reasons you got into law enforcement in the first place.
That's right.
We have about 1 minute left. Can you tell us, if someone wants to volunteer, give you $1 million or whatever, how would they get hold of you or Friends Outside?
Well, let's talk about the $1 million. Yes, you can. The best way anybody can help out Friends Outside is to investigate us, and we have a very excellent website, and it is friendsoutside.in.scc.org. And that website will tell you what our mission is. It will describe our individual programs. It lists volunteer job descriptions, and it will tell you where to send that $1 million check. And if you send me the check, I promise that I'll make a personal visit to thank you.
Sounds good to me. Thanks very much for being on the show and enlightening us about this important community asset.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, www.sccdp.org. Help make a difference.